So yesterday, kind of made an unexpected purchase. I went to a gun show. Wasn't expecting to buy anything, but I found a Remington 581 for just a price so good I couldn't pass it up. I always kind of intrigued by the Remington 581s and 541s. In fact, I came really close to buying a 541 brand new back in the 90s when they were still available in production. Anyhow, there's a gentleman there had a 581, and it's an early production. It's a 1970 production. It still has a walnut stock. The later 581s had birch. This has a really nice stock on it. Has some figure in it. So I bought it. And if anybody knows anything about the 581s and the 541s, but the 581s in particular are known to shoot much better than their price tag would really kind of make you think. In fact, I've read lots of accounts where they'll, shoot right alongside the Anschutz rifles and some other high-end rifles. The 581 has a 6-lug bolt locking system, very similar to the 788. Extremely strong locking system for a 22. You can see the 6 locking lugs here on the bolt. Anyhow, I'm not really making this a video to review the 581. Maybe once I get it shooting, and I'll do some more videos with it. The reason I want to make this video is the trigger on it was really heavy. It was more than what my trigger scale would read. My trigger scale goes up to 5 pounds, and it was over the trigger scale. I would estimate it probably had a 6.5 pound trigger. So I just did some quick research last evening after I had bought this, and I read about, I can't claim this is my idea, I read somebody talking about re-drilling the pivot point for the trigger and how that can greatly improve the trigger pull. So I decided to try that. And so the 541, which is a more expensive model, same basic rifle, a fancier stock. The 541 comes with an adjustable trigger. The 581 is a non-adjustable trigger. So essentially what I had read about was re-drilling the trigger pivot, which essentially gives you a mechanical advantage, more mechanical advantage. So here I have the trigger. This is the trigger housing. Now I have the safety removed here. Safety's not in the way. So this hole right here is the factory trigger pivot hole. And this is the hole in the trigger. So this trigger originally pivoted. I don't have the spring in there. I'm not sure. There we go. So this trigger originally pivoted right here at this hole, like so. And what I had read last night was somebody said if you scribe a line from this hole, where the trigger pivot pin is, up to the sear engagement hole, scribe a line between, and then you go up anywhere from 3/10 to 4/10 of an inch. And that's what I did. This hole right here is new. I drilled that hole. So essentially what I did with the trigger assembled, before I disassembled it, I simply used a carbide drill bit. It has to be carbide because this trigger is very hard. This is a carbide fluted drill bit. I carefully scribed and marked the location of this hole, and I just put it in the drill press and drilled a new hole, and that's the hole we see here. So what that does, it gives you considerable mechanical advantage. Using the stock spring, this is the stock spring. Now in these triggers, the spring does double duty. The spring lays in here, and it gives tension to the trigger and the sear. So the top end of the spring is on the sear, the bottom end of the spring is on the trigger. At any rate, with the stock trigger spring and the relocated pivot point, this trigger is a consistent 2 1/8 pound pull. So without changing anything else, just changing the location of the trigger pivot from here to here, I went from approximately 6.5 pounds. Again, I say approximately because it was more than my scale would measure. By relocating the trigger pivot from here to here, now I have a 2 1/8 pound pull. I did play around with some lighter springs, and I actually had it down to a pound pull. But for my purposes, I figured roughly 2 pound pull for this 22 was about right. So I'm just going to use a stock spring, and I made a new pivot pin. This is my new pivot pin. I just made this out of a 1/8 drill bit. I cut it off with a Dremel. So this is going to be my new pivot pin. I'm going to put that in there, and I am just going to, kind of an unplanned event here. For whatever reason, and I think I knew this years ago and I had forgotten, but these carbide drill bits for drilling hardened steel, which is triggers hard, you're not going to really touch this trigger with a standard drill bit. These carbide drill bits don't react well to soft metals, and no harm done, but what I found is when I started drilling this hole, it kind of wallowed out the aluminum, which is rather bizarre. I'm not sure why it did that. The drill bit was running true, the stock wasn't moving. But down in the center of the hole, it's still proper diameter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna use that larger portion of the hole. I'm gonna set this pin through the trigger, and then I'm just going to use some epoxy in there. And what that'll do, that'll actually hold the pin in place. So it's no real harm done there, but if you decide to do this, what I would recommend doing is using a standard drill bit until you get through the soft aluminum, and then switch to your carbide drill bit to drill through the hardened steel. I mean, it makes just a perfect hole through, nice hard steel like that. But at any rate, yeah, pretty happy with it. I'm gonna reassemble this stock trigger spring, and yeah, have a nice 2 1/8 pound trigger pull on this 22. I will say, I suspect no such thing as a free lunch. So I suspect that moving the trigger pin up here, it's going to make the trigger pull, it's proven to make the trigger pull considerably lighter, but I do believe that I'm going to end up with a little bit more creep. By moving the pivot point higher on the trigger, it increases the mechanical advantage, but it also is going to increase the amount that the trigger has to move before this clears the sear. So I don't think, from the few shots I fired through it, testing the trigger pull, I don't think the creep is going to be excessive to where it really is a problem or bothers me. But it's just physics. By moving the trigger pivot up the trigger further, there's going to be more trigger movement on the trigger shoe to get the sear to break. So I'll keep you posted on that. But I had thought about maybe modifying the sear a little bit to reduce the engagement, but I really don't want to do anything like that, just yet at least. Like I said, I'm just simply going to reassemble this stock spring, and I'm going to shoot it as is and see how it goes. But so far, extremely happy with this modification. If you already have the parts, it's essentially free. I can't remember what I had to pay for this bit. I bought this bit years ago. The bit might be $10 or $15 if you have to source one of them. But at any rate, from what I've seen so far, it's a really cheap and easy way to get a pretty nice trigger on one of these 581s. So, hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, let me know. And you'll probably see this 22 some more in further videos. So they're well known for their accuracy, so I'll maybe do some shooting videos with it or so forth down the road. So anyhow, hope you enjoy. We'll see you later.